These days, I can do anything from my phone. Book a vacation, order a meal from a five-star restaurant, buy and trade stocks. But maybe the most amazing thing I can do is make my dirty laundry disappear and then reappear perfectly washed and folded. I have Rinse to thank for that. I just schedule a pickup in the Rinse app or at rinse.com. A Rinse valet comes to get my clothes, and before I know it, they're back, crisply folded and ready to wear. They even do dry cleaning, which is returned hanging in a nice Rinse garment bag. And with Rinse, my satisfaction is guaranteed. If for any reason I'm not happy, they'll re-clean my clothes for free. Best of all, Rinse saves me tons of time each week. That's time I get to do something I love versus something I have to do. So if you want to save loads of time by not doing loads of laundry, remember, there's an app for that. Rinse. Sign up now and get $20 off your first order at rinse.com. That's RINSE.com.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast, Season 7, Episode 28. My name is Timothy. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined by Jonathan Kuline, who is also, no, he's not also, but he is in Jacksontown, New Brunswick.
I am. Hello there, kids.
And with us is also part of the triad, Jaime Lopez Jr. in Seattle, Washington.
How's it going?
Right, cool. It is going very well.
Always three there are.
Always three there are. Three? Yes. Okay.
Could be.
Could be. All right, we got some fact check. So apparently the chicken jockey is what was making the kids go crazy at the Mindfest, a Mindfest movie theaters. A chicken jockey, for those of you who don't know, is like a little zombie character that lands on the back of a chicken and runs around and beats up Jason Momoa in the movie. But apparently it's a really hard to get character combination in Minecraft. That's why they were going bananas. And it got so, I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but it got to the point where some theaters in the UK are not letting children go unaccompanied by an adult to the Minecraft movie.
Yeah, they don't freak out? Because it's hit the memes. Well, they say children, but I think they really mean like teenagers, tweens, basically anybody who is online enough and jerky enough to do some sort of TikTok meme, right? If you had unaccompanied, hey, drop off like the 7-year-olds, they're probably okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this is one of those ones where, one, don't mess up a theater. It's not right. The other one is, for the theaters, you might have to, just like the Wicked movies, just steer into the skid and say, no, yeah, the Wicked, right? It said no singing during the movie except for the special singing along version that you like, you go separately to. So I don't know if any theater will do a chicken jockey edition of like, okay, we got double staff. We've tripled the prices on the popcorn and the sodas. Bring it at 10 a.m. on Friday. Fantastic. Go knock yourselves out. Otherwise, don't mess with it.
Carol was saying that, like with the Rocky Horror Picture Show, people, like the fans, stick around and help clean up afterwards, right? So I guess the difference here is they're just trashing the place and then leaving, right? So I don't know if there's a video, maybe it might be in this link here, but I saw a video of the kids like on TikTok or whatever, just going bananas when the character came on the screen, right? So, yeah. Anyway, that's cool. And I mentioned Tom Cruise risking his life for a stunt. I just learned on a TikTok video that he did that motorcycle jump off the mountain 8 times. So 8 times he went flying off there. They had drones, helicopters. They obviously trashed 8 motorcycles, perfectly good motorcycles. And ironically, they used the first take of the jump when they did that one. And last one is Patrick Wilson is the main character in the season 2 of Fargo, the TV show. He plays a character called Lou Solverson, who is the father of the police woman in the first season. She's the main character in the first season. And her father in that one is played by Keith Carradine, but he plays the same character, Lou Solverson, in season 1. So, yeah, Patrick Wilson's a guy I can remember. I just know him from, first time I remember seeing him was in The Watchmen. So I don't know if I'm supposed to know him from other stuff.
He was in both the Aquaman movies.
Oh, you mean the one with Jason Momoa?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only seen one of those. And
yeah, he was the bad guy.
Oh, was he? Okay. Well, that was after Watchmen, though. I mean,
true.
Right? Yeah, I've seen him in other things, right?
Yep.
Anyway, it's just, I mean, most of the actors in Watchmen, that was probably like the first time I'd seen them, other than the guy who played the big blue guy and the guy who played Rorschach. I've seen them in things before.
Yep.
Cool. All right, well, let's move on to some headlines. Jonathan's got some breaking news.
Breaking news! We happen to be recording this as Star Wars Celebration Tokyo is happening. And we're getting some breaking news that they have announced a new Star Wars movie. That's right, kids, a new theatrical release. This is Sean Levy's movie that has been in discussions for a while, and it will star Ryan Gosling, and it will be called Star Wars Starfighter.
Oh, I thought it was going to be called Ken the Last Starfighter.
That would be fine, too.
Starfighter. So I wonder if, okay, so he's going to fight stars?
Exactly. It's basically Celebrity Deathmatch from 1990s MTV.
I'll be really curious to see what this is. I haven't seen any details yet. This is literally breaking news. Like, they just announced it on social media.
This wasn't on the show notes about 5 minutes ago. I just want to point out to people.
Yeah, like this just broke. It says it's coming on May 28th, 2027. And there is a little, like, just showing you the logo teaser.
Ooh.
So it will come out on the 50th anniversary of the original Star Wars. So they're going to do a theatrical movie to coincide with that. Pretty cool. Starfighter.
The little starburst I got to say on the little logo here I'm watching here. My first impressions is It looks like they ripped off Star Trek. like Paramount's going to call them and say, "Hey, that's our little star thingy that the captains wear in the middle of their crest or their communicator."
Yeah.
Anyway, just saying.
Starfighter. The only thing that is sort of out there about Starfighter is Starfighter was a game for PS2. There was a Starfighter 1 and a Starfighter 2 way back in the late 90s.
I think I have one of those on my PS4. Like, came with my system.
Yeah, and this is not to be confused with Rogue Squadron, which was the Patty Jenkins movie that they had announced, but then shelved, but then re-announced, but then has also gone into limbo. So,
Does it star Batwoman?
No reports of Batwoman and or the Coyote from Looney Tunes. But what do you guys think? A new Star Wars theatrical movie. We haven't had one since that cinematic tragedy, Rise of Skywalker.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's your opinion. That's like your opinion, man. As they
it
say,
is like my opinion, man.
The big Blowski guy. I mean, I would have thought you would say Solo was not a great movie, but I bits of Solo I enjoyed, and bits of
it's all on a scale. And Solo versus Rise of Skywalker, I think you know which way I lean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like the whole thing about Skywalker is like they could, like we've said this many times, they could have buried that character and started a new thread, right, on something different, right? Like, it's kind of sad that they had Daisy Ridley's character take the name Skywalker at the end of it, right?
I mean, that was the least of the worst parts of that movie.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For some reason, the Emperor's back. Cool.
Yeah. Well, that too. Yeah. Cloning, man. Cloning.
Don't get me started. We'll be here all night. Don't get me started.
All right. We won't get you started.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, no, Star Wars, all good. Yep, ready for it.
Yeah, and I think
hopefully it's not Acolyte.
Sorry, there was a little bit of delay there.
Yeah, it's okay.
I think this is a good way to get back to basics. Just from the name, I'm like, it's going to have some pew pew pews. That's good. People are excited about the pew pew pews. It can't be just pew pew pews, but it's a good way to get you back into, okay, you're probably going to want to have a careful balance, right? I know it's a lot trendier to dunk on The Force Awakens nowadays, but at the time, people really needed a kind of back to Star Wars basics, remind you of like Ryan Gosling's childhood. What are these, bed sheets? Comforter? Yeah, bed sheets, right? Of like a simpler time when it wasn't all about, tax disputes, trade disputes, tariffs, possibly.
Yeah. Tariffs, yeah. Trade federations.
He was like, boy, now as adults, we totally understand how that could start wars now. But little kids don't, right? Like, little kids are like, what's going on? Who's the bad guy? Well, it kind of depends on who you think works out economically. So, no. Back to it. You're a starfighter. You could be training for it. You could be pulled in. It could be like a Top Gun, kind of franchise. It seems like it has some possibilities here. So I'm excited for the idea of having Star Wars back in the theaters. Although I do think the Mandalorian movie comes out before this. I didn't look at the dates to compare. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
which
this
of these
movie's
is
coming in
first.
2027, and that's coming next year.
Okay, so it won't be the very first one, but it'll need to prove out that, assuming the Mandalorian movie is good, we need to prove out that it's not just a fluke, or that you can actually do something beyond the Mandalorian series in the movies, in the theaters.
He's going to be the second Canadian starfighter after Appa, right?
Could be. Also noted, so Sean Levy, who's going to be the director, is also Canadian from Montreal. If you want his list of films, your mileage may vary, but Deadpool and Wolverine is his most recent film. The Atom Project, which was on Netflix, I believe. Free Guy.
I saw that one.
Free Guy. Night at the Museum, Secret of the Tomb, This Is Where I Leave You, Real Steel, Night at the Museum 2, Night at the Museum 3, Pink Panther, Cheaper by the
But
Dozen.
he's also been a producer on things like Things and other stuff.
Yeah, he's produced a ton of stuff. He produced Arrival, he produced lots of stuff. So, I mean, this guy's got bona fides.
I saw the Atom Project. That was a Netflix movie? I thought I saw it in the theater.
I don't remember. It came out in 2022. I feel like I watched it on Netflix.
It was absolutely available on Netflix. I do not know if it was also a theatrical release.
Right. No, I would have watched that on Netflix for sure. That makes sense. Cool. It's all good, man.
Mm-hmm. It said it had a limited theatrical release and followed by a Netflix release.
Okay.
There you go. Breaking fact check. All right, Jaime, you're up next.
Yeah, so right here we have an article from Variety. We'll have that in the show notes for those of you transporting it home. I'll just read the title here. Mythic Quest to end after 4 seasons. Apple TV Plus to air an updated finale episode with new ending, and I see the notification from them that it is available now as we speak.
Oh, wait, we've already had 4 seasons of Mythic
The 4th season just ended like a week or 2 ago, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it ended, at the time, it ended on a real hard cliffhanger. And so now, I guess, rather than having a final season, they're getting a redo of the ending or an addendum to the ending. It's unclear. Like I said, this 44 minutes ago was the notification that says, Mythic Quest says goodbye. The series finale has been updated with a new ending. Watch it now on Apple TV Plus app. So I've not seen this because we had to, get ready for the show. But
yeah, I'm still halfway through season 3 on that show, and I haven't watched Side Quest yet either. So I have to get caught up. Well, I got time now, right? There's no need to really rush into that headlong, right?
How are you feeling about that? I know you both watched this. I've been meaning to, but I haven't gotten into it.
Having seen all 4 seasons and the side quest stuff, I think it's unfortunate that they didn't get the heads up notice that season 4 was going to be their final season. It would have been, not having seen the revamped or, addendum added to the finale, it would be nice to have a perfect coda to this sort of series. But I will say, as a fan of the series, as each season goes along, they get a little further away from the premise, which is video game company, right? Video game hijinks. And the 4th season was probably the worst offender at that. That's not to say it's a bad season. I still enjoy it, but it definitely diminishes it when it becomes more about just the people and their relationships and not the people, their relationships in the context of this meat grinder industry.
So it's less of a startup sort of flick at that point, or?
They're not spending enough time in season 4 on like the game type stuff and how adding stuff to the game or removing stuff from the game or building the game causes issues for the
messing
people
with
that do
investor money and blah blah blah.
Yeah. So it feels more like just a regular show at that point and not really Mythic Quest. So I can totally see why the execs at Apple, I don't have access to the stats, but I can see where they said, you know what, it's not enough to get a 5th season. But we like you, cast and crew, or maybe just Rob McElhaney in particular. Like, let's go ahead and do additional reshoots or whatever it is that ends the ends the ending of the season, which is now the season and series finale.
Right. Well, I sort of have a sort of follow-up based on that. You reminded me of something I've forgotten about, but I was going to mention during the show, and that is I watched an interview with Diego Luna on Jimmy Kimmel last night, or I can't remember if it was on YouTube or live or whatever, and he was talking about Andor, and, they said that even though they planned on doing 5 years of Andor, this is going to be the last year of Andor. And the reason why he said it's 2.5 years to produce the show, and he doesn't want to be running around shooting blasters for the next 10 years. So, yeah. So I don't know if we knew that going into today, but that was something I was kind of surprised to see. It was a really interesting interview with him talking about various things, but that was one takeaway from me was sad news, I'm calling it.
Yeah, I mean, they had been pretty clear after season 1 they were going to do one more that was going to pretty much bring us up to Rogue One, and from there's no really where to go. They could have stretched this out into more, but I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I don't even mind the idea of limited series one-offs and stuff like that. I mean, Andor, I'd rather have 2 amazing seasons of Andor, even in the time that it took them to do it, and then have it be done than, have the quality diminish and everything else, right?
Yeah. Well, it's like the Seinfeld, they kind of went out on the top, right, too. You don't want to be dragging it out forever.
Fingers crossed that's what Andor does.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Anyway, sorry to interrupt the show there, folks, with some, sad news, but there you go. Back to you, John.
Also today, we got a more robust trailer for the Fantastic Four First Steps. Pretty interesting, definitely a little more substantive, a little less teasery than the last one. It seems like there's a bit more plot to it. We get that, this is an established team. We kind of flash back to their origins. It is the sort of neo-future kind of vibe that we've seen in the previous trailers. And then we get our first good look at the Silver Surfer, the female version. And we get a little bit more of the menace of Galactus. So, yeah, I was in the bag already. What'd you guys take out of this?
Well, what was really interesting to me is I hadn't really noticed this before, but Joseph Quinn looks a lot like a young like Robert Downey Jr., like just around his eyes and face and stuff. Have you guys not noticed that?
I might notice that.
Yeah. Did you?
Was it Jaime or was it? I saw it on our Slack channel today.
I posted that on the Slack.
No, I wasn't the one who posted it.
Oh, I think it was actually maybe it
Keen
was
and I were talking about it, and I said, "Why does he look like a young?"
But Keen posted a response saying that he actually wants to play a young RDJ.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
I didn't read the response.
Yeah. No, like Keen had a response in there basically saying that you're not the first person to notice that. Apparently, even he has said if they ever want to do a movie about a young RDJ, he's in.
I just saw your Picard thing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, the latest thing on the AI machines out there, besides making these fantastic looking cartoon avatars that everybody's got except me, and now you can get yourself put into like an action figure kind of rendering. So Jonathan posted Captain Picard. It comes with there's 4 light bulbs, but it says includes 5 lights.
There
Earl Grey and a flute.
4 lights.
No, there's 5.
Yeah, I saw that today. It just made me laugh.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, but getting back to the Fantastic Four, it does look pretty good. I don't know about the lifting up the Volkswagens and stuff like that, but yeah, it looks okay. I mean, I guess it's sort of retro because they're all dressed like the 50s. Like all the men have fedoras and long raincoats and stuff like that, right, over their suits.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an interesting way to approach it because Fantastic Four always did have that sort of, neo-futuristic kind of vibe to it. That's what Jack Kirby's art brought to it. And to do that for this, because this is a stepping stone to Doomsday and Secret Wars, where the cat's out of the bag that they're going to bring all the heroes from the different dimensions together, you can do this whole movie here and then have the Fantastic Four merge into a larger universe down the road. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. It's a good idea.
Right. By the way, just jumping back to last week's show, I didn't realize that the showing of the director's chairs took like several hours to run through.
Yeah.
Really? And just reminded me because, Sue Storm. And...
Well, that was the joke about that, the Wolverine video that we talked about last week. That if you're willing to watch 5 hours of people's director's chairs being unveiled, maybe you'll just watch Hugh Jackman in his Wolverine costume breathe for 8 hours.
Yeah. I guess you guys haven't seen this show art yet this week? Or last week's show?
No. Oh, yeah, I did. Yeah. I did.
All right.
Next up, a bit of sad news, but, long life. Jean Marsh passed away this week, aged 90. Jean Marsh may not be a name you know, but she's certainly a face you know. She was in all kinds of stuff over the years. Very, 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 very well-known actress. She was acting for like 60 years, so great career for her. Best known here in North America, she was the evil Queen Bathmorda in Willow. And she was also Miss Momsey in Return to Oz, which, Tim, you and I think, have seen a lot. So, she was one of those faces. You kind of saw her in all kinds of stuff over the years, and, you recognized her, but you didn't know who necessarily she was. But she was an Emmy Award-winning actress. She won an Emmy Award for the show Upstairs, Downstairs back in the 70s, and, was a very well-known popular actress in her day. Obviously for our generations, she's a different part of her career, but good for her. And again, 90 years. That's to sneeze at. Other shows. She was on the Twilight Zone. She was on The Saint. She was on all kinds of stuff that we saw over the years. So big career, and she will be missed.
Yeah. By the way, just a bit of fact check here. Sarah used to pronounce it "A Turn to Oz."
A turn. Yeah, she did.
A Turn to Oz.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we watched that one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, well, maybe least, the details of season 2 of The Sandman have arrived. Given the scandal around Neil Gaiman, your mileage on this one may vary. It is coming to Netflix this summer. They're going to release it in a very unusual way for Netflix, because Netflix is infamous for, drop it all at once, get into it. Here, they're going to drop it in 2 chunks. They're going to do 6 episodes starting on July the 3rd, and then they're going to do 5 more episodes on July 24th. I don't know what the reason for that is. It doesn't seem crystal clear to me.
Production, maybe?
I just wonder if they're trying to do it as like 2 sort of separate arcs. I mean, the scandal around Neil Gaiman, and for those that don't remember, he was accused of sexual impropriety by a number of women, using his power to do very, very unsavory things. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds on that, but it was enough to lead to the premature cancellation of this series, which many of us who are longtime comic fans and fans of Neil's writing from years gone by were really excited they were finally getting to, because The Sandman... I mean, I completely have nothing but disdain for what I've read about the accusations against Neil, but his writing is exceptional, and the series is exquisite, and the adaptation has been long anticipated. It was supposed to hopefully cover the entire 75 plus issues from the series. It sounds like they're barely going to get to issue 30. So that's a real drag. I can't decide whether or not I'm going to watch this. I enjoyed the first season. I thought it was a pretty fair adaptation, but I feel a little icky about this now, so we'll see.
Cool. All right. Well, I guess we're at the main part of the show where we talk about stuff.
Stuff.
Since there's no Star Trek stuff on the schedule today. So we're going to talk about Daredevil Born Again. We're going to talk about Last of Us, which just started, and Doctor Who, which also just started. So Born Again is ending. This is the season finale.
Season finale
of Daredevil Born Again. Dun, 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 straight to hell.
Or, as I like to call it, Daredevil Infinity War, because this is the one that ends on the bummer note, right?
Yeah.
Prepare for next year's Daredevil Endgame.
Yeah, it was a very interesting sort of pace to this show, right? Again, like fighting crime from a hospital bed. I mean,
well, in fairness, he gets out of the bed, he just bleeds a lot.
Yeah, but that's a trope, right? That's a sort of the hero, can't be held down in the hospital bed, has to escape, and of course somebody's coming to, do him in, and he has to escape while that's happening, right?
Say it with me. Thank you, Buck.
Thank you, Buck.
Because Kingpin says that like 20 times over the course of this series. Thank you, Buck. And then at one point, Gandolfini's kid says that in this episode. Thank you,
Does
Bob.
he?
Yeah. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess he's trying to show his stuff. But anyway, the interesting trope about, the turning off the power to Manhattan or whatever. It takes place in New York, right?
It does.
Yeah. So turning off the power to the island, and that's when, of course, turn off the lights. How does that affect the blind guy? It doesn't.
Yeah,
Right,
this is why we need quotes that should have happened. It's like, you merely adopted the dog. I was born in it, molded by it. I know he technically wasn't, because he actually does literally in this episode say how he, had his sight taken away, and he had, issues with faith. But it's, it's funnier to be like, I don't think the guy who goes around without eyes is going to be impacted by the darkness.
Well, and again, the whole point of the darkness is just, see if this sounds familiar, folks. This is a politician who's gone rogue, is abusing their power, is making arbitrary decisions by bullying people and trying to get what he wants. And
by creating chaos,
by creating artificial chaos. In this case, it's turning all the power off so that there's looting, so then he can declare martial law, and then he can have his task force go out and try and kill all the vigilantes or catch them all. So it's an excuse. It's all just an excuse to try and amalgamate power and get rid of his enemies. Does that sound familiar, Aisel? And in this case, it backfires pretty badly because in knowing that this is happening, our old friend Karen Page makes a phone call, and who comes to the rescue for Matt, but Frank Castle himself, the Punisher. And so this is one of the goriest MCU things that's ever been put to print. There's a couple scenes in there, particularly when Punisher's like walking up to that one building and just jams a knife into the guy's neck and just rips it sideways, and blood goes spraying across
he cut a chunk out of somebody at one point too, right?
I mean, it is pretty insanely graphic for an MCU product. If my kids were like, I love Guardians of the Galaxy, I want to watch everything, this would not be on the list.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. Well, it's interesting too, because that whole series at the end, where they're all emulating, the vigilantes are all dressed like Punisher, and they're emulating him, and like they're doing the hero worship thing, and they've got him chained to the chair, and they're like, we idolize you. You should join us and be our leader. And again, of course, the trope is he's going to say no, but yeah, I mean, like, what was that about? Like, and what if he had said yes?
Yeah, I mean, they set that up through this whole series, that there's this group of rogue cops that eventually they all coalesce around the Kingpin and become his attack dogs, and they do all his dirty work for him, and they are scratching the Punisher logo into their bullet casings, and they're wearing Punisher paraphernalia, which is obviously pretty disrespectful in his opinion. And so when he finally encounters these people and realizes that these are just, dirty cops.
Wannabes, yeah.
And real, scum, he does not hold back. In spite of Matt trying to stop him, he just mercilessly goes after them, and it's gory. But good, because, I mean, these are, we've seen them in the last few episodes. These are, theoretically law enforcement officers who are not in any interest in enforcing the law. These are people just doing what they are told by somebody who is clearly very corrupt and doing something that is very much detrimental to the public good. So yeah, there was some pretty clear parallels being drawn in this. I assume we're not wasting it on YouTube, but I wonder how this was received on the wider.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's interesting too, when you think about it, because this would have been written well in advance of current affairs, right? So it would have, and when was it? We know it was like filmed and in production like many moons ago. Yeah, last year. So this all predates what's currently going on, right? So, but you're right. It's interesting. I wonder. I mean, if you were a narcissist in a position like a Kingpin, you might think this was about you, right?
Yeah.
When I'm saying it's not. I can't imagine, because it's a character out of a comic book, right? And I mean, characters in comic books don't run countries, do they?
Well, and there is a conspiratorial bent out there that is under the impression that some public officials might like to manufacture crises because that gives them more opportunity to do what the Kingpin does here and take matters into their own hands and declare martial law.
It's totally the creating the mayhem. You're right. The creating the mayhem is the sort of the red herring to letting them do what ultimately they want to do, right?
Yeah. So here, obviously, we see it in a very fictionalized way and a very extreme way. Obviously, very sort of action TV show, comic booky kind of way. It would be horrible if this was happening in real life, but it's
give it time.
It is. It's definitely interesting because it does kind of. As I joked at the beginning of this, it's kind of the Infinity War. Like at the end of this, Matt doesn't win. It's very much a setup for season 2, and we know that they were filming them concurrently, so it makes sense. But it very much leaves with Kingpin triumphant. He kills one of his major enemies. He imprisons a bunch of others. He is setting himself up to be not just the Kingpin of, as the mayor, but he's also got this, we sort of find out what Vanessa's and his grand plan is. And, and Matt is basically at the back of Josie's bar trying to figure out who he can get together to do this. I was really, really hoping when they cut to that bar, I was hoping who was going to be in the bar was the Defenders. I was praying when that came around. Wouldn't that have just been so much more satisfying if when they cut to Josie's bar, you saw Luke and you saw Jessica Jones and, just that whole gang, and you were just like, oh yeah, the band's back together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But it's funny. My big quote for this show, but I didn't write it down, was what Castle says at the very end when he sticks his hand through the door to shake the guy's hand. I forget what he said though.
Oh yeah, he's buttering up the cop. He's like, oh yeah, shake my hand.
You're from Jersey, right? I kind of could tell. We're both tough from Jersey and everything. Yeah. He had a good line too, where they're getting attacked in Frank Castle's abode, and they've got the Punisher guy that has the hint that they needed of or the evidence they needed of so these are the guys that took out the White Tiger and have been putting the Punisher.
Oh yeah, it's Cole North. Yeah, the cop, the bad cop. Yeah,
and he's gonna Punisher's gonna shoot the guy, and Daredevil stops him and says, "Hey, he's not worth it." Punisher turns around and shoots another guy, and he's like, "What about him? Is he worth it?" It's like, jeez.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Yeah, got a couple of quotes here from him. Nothing in this world a good cup of coffee can't fix.
Yeah.
And then the other one was, I'll tell you right now, they come here, I'm not playing patty cake with these fanboys. Yeah. I'm chopping them up. Do you understand me?
Yeah. I like how they've captured this energy between them, because that was something I really enjoy in the comic books, particularly in sort of my prime reading years, was that these two, they disagree on the how, but they don't disagree on the what. They both are trying to work for the greater good. They both have a sense of honor. They both have a code. It's just that Frank's is much grittier and more final than Matt's. But there is this relationship. There is this connection between the two of them that they seem to have captured here in a way that I really enjoy, especially because I really like both these actors. When the two of them are on screen, it is kind of crackling. Like they have an energy together where you get this sort of both grudging respect but also disdain for one another. It's really interesting. Jaime, what stood out for you in this one?
The rise and consolidation of power from Fisk, as people call out. I want to say it was the police commissioner saying, are you condoning deadly force? And he's like, condoning, no, encouraging. Just putting a real, cherry on the sundae. Like, I'm being very, mask off. I'm just going to make it really clear. I'm not condoning this bad behavior by the task force. I'm actively encouraging it.
Yeah. He was playing it really big this episode, the Kingpin.
Yeah, and shout out to the baby pin.
Yeah.
The soprano.
Yeah. I don't know. So we've got the whole 9 episodes. This was the first half season. My overall impression is I really loved having many of these characters back, but I felt like it was a little inconsistent. the first season of the Daredevil Netflix series is incredible. Like, it's one of the best things ever done in Marvel. 2 and 3, your mileage may vary. This is not the first season of Daredevil. And yet, I'm kind of hopeful that as a whole, when we see season 2, maybe it will play out okay. Because they seem like they finally figured out towards the end of the season where they wanted to go. The first half seemed a little bit all over the place, and then it kind of settled in. And we did talk about how, they started filming it, then there was a writer's strike, they went back, they edited it, they changed things. Like, so I guess that's the result of this, but I don't know. I just feel like it was a little inconsistent for my taste, but also I love these performers. I love these characters. I didn't really like some of the supporting cast around Matt this year. Like, I definitely liked Karen and Foggy better. I liked, when Frank was there, but he was only in 2 episodes. I didn't like his girlfriend. I didn't like his coworkers and stuff like that. Like, I feel like that was what was missing, was that energy from the connection with his friends, right?
Yeah, I kind of, the fact that they brought Karen back for this episode was kind of like bookending the series, but I totally missed that from this season, right? I mean, the only one he had was Cherry, really, from before, right?
Yeah, and there just wasn't enough. Like, it didn't feel like he was a real confidant, or like, it just didn't feel like there was a lot of there.
Yeah. He was just trying to keep Matt from putting the mask back on, right?
Yeah. Fail.
Mm-hmm. Well, we knew that was coming, right? We wouldn't call it this if that was going to happen.
Yep.
It's a good show.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad Daredevil's back. I love Daredevil, one of my all-time favorite characters. The way you feel about Star Wars, where there's no bad Star Wars, this could have been better. There's definitely things that I would have liked to have seen done differently, but I love having these characters back, and I'm looking forward to next year.
And D'Onofrio is really good as Kingpin.
He is. He was really chewing it up, though. I mean, this last episode, he was like, like the look on his face, where he's like squeezing that guy's head. I mean, that was, again, speaking of gory scenes. Holy moly.
Doing the Blade Runner death scene thing,
Yeah.
Any questions?
Yeah. And of course, they have to put him in a white suit to do all this. Blah.
Yeah, then he's got a lot of white suits because he cleans up real quick, too, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Now, a word from our sponsor.
These days, I can do anything from my phone. Book a vacation, order a meal from a 5-star restaurant, buy and trade stocks. But maybe the most amazing thing I can do is make my dirty laundry disappear and then reappear perfectly washed and folded. I have Rinse to thank for that. I just schedule a pickup in the Rinse app or at rinse.com. A Rinse valet comes to get my clothes, and before I know it, they're back, crisply folded and ready to wear. They even do dry cleaning, which is returned hanging in a nice Rinse garment bag. And with Rinse, my satisfaction is guaranteed. If for any reason I'm not happy, they'll re-clean my clothes for free. Best of all, Rinse saves me tons of time each week. That's time I get to do something I love versus something I have to do. So if you want to save loads of time by not doing loads of laundry, remember, there's an app for that, Rinse. Sign up now and get $20 off your first order at rinse.com. That's RINSE.com.
Now, back to the show.
We move on to Last of Us.
Mm-hmm.
Season 2, Episode 1, Future Days.
Mm-hmm.
So we're several months later from where we left off.
5 years. 5 years later.
Yes, 5 years, yeah.
Yeah, Ellie's a 19-year-old now.
Mm-hmm.
And an angry 19-year-old.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, well, I forget what the line he crossed was, Pedro Pascal's character.
Yeah, I guess spoilers for the first season, but they set it up with the flashback or maybe continuation, because I think it technically ends when they're on the road in the pickup truck, if I remember.
No, it ends with them on the hill, and she basically says, "Where?" Right?
So she asks him outside of the truck. I thought it was in the truck that she asked. Okay, so it was outside the truck. Okay, so it is a flashback then. Yeah.
And there's a bit she asks about the people, like why he pulled her out from there.
Yeah, basically he finally delivers her to the Firefly base, and then when they're there, they basically tell him, we basically need to like dissect her brain to find the cure. He can't handle it because he started to love her like a daughter, and snaps and kills everybody and gets her out of there. And then she starts to really suspect that something's gone down there. And that's kind of where we pick up this energy 5 years later. She's clearly still holding on to that.
Well, I mean, that part, that part in the hospital, the Firefly lab or whatever, is a big part of the game. It's a big,
Yeah.
him rescuing her kind of thing. That's sort of like one of the hardest levels in the game.
Yeah, and we can talk about it because the way that they told this story definitely differs. So I put into the show notes here. I started watching the playthrough, the actual game playthrough on YouTube. I don't really feel the desire to play the game, but I kind of would like to see. Like, I know it's an exceptional game. It's just not my cup of tea. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to sit and watch this. So I watched about 3 hours of the game. It's a 15-hour playthrough, so I'm 3 hours in. But it covers a lot of the, pretty important events. But in the game, there's some mystery about who this character Abby is that we see at the beginning of this episode. Here, they kind of draw a pretty straight line, right? Like, it's pretty clear what her motivations are and what she's after, right? And this episode is pretty much a direct prequel to the beginning of Last of Us Part 2, the video game. Because in having just watched the playthrough, it pretty much picks up the next day after the events of this episode. Because it references the kiss at the party. It references, some of the events that just happened. And so it'll be interesting to see if next week kind of covers the same ground as the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because this episode, like they did include the supermarket scene where we get, the jump scares and the scary new infected who can kind of stalk, right? The stalker. And you get some of that Last of Us energy, but all things being equal, it's pretty tame by Last of Us standards. And yet there's this real element of foreshadowing and foreboding throughout the whole thing of like, it feels like the dam's about to break. It feels like Joel's about to break. It feels like Ellie's about to break. It feels like Dina's about to break. It feels like the town's about to break. It feels like Abby and her friends are about to break. Like, it just feels like there's this real tension to it. And it's really good filmmaking to do that. This is supposed to be Jackson, Wyoming. Did it feel Jackson, Wyoming? Because it certainly felt like interior BC to me.
Is it like Alberta or something?
No, they moved it to BC for season 2. It was Alberta last season. It's BC this season.
Okay. I mean, it's Wyoming-ish. And I mean, you just wear that kind of gear and you kind of just feel like Wyoming, So it is kind of interesting to see how they have to portray. So for folks who don't know, traditionally you have Toronto play either Chicago or New York. It's just as fine. And when you need something on the West Coast like Seattle or Portland, you inevitably use Vancouver. Yeah. And apparently they did use Alberta, which would have been my guess, but you're telling me it was actually in BC.
It was in the valley, yeah.
And I've been to northern BC. It is very similar to that. Like,
yeah,
the roads are not paved, and when you rent a car in northern BC, you can't get windshield insurance.
Yeah, like the Irish roads where you they just assume you're coming back with scratches from the hedges.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this one again, I think I could see if people didn't love this because it wasn't, whiz bang, and we did end on a real whiz bang note, but this is really good groundwork for where the show is going. It will be interesting to see that they did announce a season 3, so they're going to split the game up into 2 final seasons. So it'll be interesting to see where they decide a halfway mark is and what they add in. Obviously, last season they added in some side quests, including that incredible episode with Nick Offerman. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do as far as staying on the main track of the much beloved video game versus what they decide to add in too. And we've got another Canadian icon mixed in this episode.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara, Pride of Canada, shows up as the psychotherapist, Gail, who has a really interesting scene where she's doing a psychotherapy session while hammered and talks about how much she hates Joel.
Mm-hmm. Well, killed her husband, right?
He did, yes.
But was it her husband? Had he turned at that point?
I can't remember. I was trying to remember the details of Eugene's story from the first one. But yeah, interesting. And, there's this looming threat against Jackson. and there's this looming threat of the people, and there's this like the creepy tendrils everywhere.
The fungus,
yeah, like it's again, it definitely keeps the vibe from the first season and makes you want more.
Yeah, the clickers and the clickers in the other one. There's 2 stages, but now there's the third one. They're annoying in the game, right?
Oh, I played. Did I play the whole thing? I feel like I played most of part 1, and I sat down this week and I was like, oh, maybe I should play part 2. And I was just like, I'm just not feeling it, especially because I'm here in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like, it's a little creepy. I'm not feeling it. So I thought, you know what? Well, I'll see if there's a good playthrough. And I started watching this playthrough, and it's really clean. And it did make me think. Like I did a playthrough of the 4K restoration, that version they've done for the PS5. And man, it looks fantastic. It just looks
great. It looks better than the PlayStation 4 version for sure.
It looks incredible. And I just honestly, I'm watching it, and even the gameplay portions where, obviously not the cinematic cutscenes and stuff, but even the gameplay portions, I'm like, the attention to detail, like this is an incredibly made game. Much kudos. But beyond just the gameplay, about like just the subtle details, the musical cues, the voice acting, there's so much to it. It really is an exquisite game. Again, I'm not into horror games. I'm not really into horror as a genre. So, it's a testament to how good this show has been that I'm wrapped. I want to see it, even though I know I'm like, oh, zombies. I don't like zombies. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to spend 15 hours watching the playthrough, but I did watch most of what you posted here. What is this? This clip is from what? Just middle of the game?
I think it picks up pretty much where I left off. So that's why it's probably showing you from there on. But I basically made it to 3 hours in point over the course of a few days, and was like, it's interesting to go back and see the parallels. If people are loving this and want a little more, you could either wait till the series is over if you don't want to be spoiled, or if you I kind of knew some of the details already just because the game's been out for like a decade.
Yeah, it came out in 2013. The first game came out in 2013, I think, or this version, part 2.
Yeah, so it's been quite a while, and so it was pretty hard to be working what I was doing and not know what happened, irrespective of playing it. So I don't mind watching it and just enjoying it, but it's a really interesting, it actually kind of holds up as you could cut this up into chunks and make it into a little mini series on its own. And it would be a pretty satisfying animated movie. Some of the stuff that really starts to get on your nerves is some of the stuff that they put in as gameplay mechanics, because that you do the you go rifle through drawers looking for cigarettes and bullets and stuff. That gets a little tedious. And
it's always the same animation too, yeah. Yeah,
and there's a crafting component to the game, which obviously, Tim, you're familiar with, but you find pieces and you put together, you upgrade things and whatever. Anyone who's played Red Dead or pretty much any Rockstar game will be familiar with those kinds of mechanics as well. But that also gets a little tedious. We're just like, I don't care, but you can fast forward too if you don't want to watch that stuff.
All right. So yeah, let's move on to Doctor Who. We're talking about the season 2, episode 1. We're back with Robot Revolution. One of the better episodes, I thought, of Doctor Who. Very well produced and stuff. And I think I posted a behind the scenes clip on our Slack channel of the people who played the robots. So it's interesting. This show tends to, it doesn't always tend to, but it uses a lot more practical effects than CGI in a lot of cases, right? Yeah. Other than the fact that the TARDIS is bigger on the inside.
Yeah, it's interesting. So there's a bit of buzz out there that this might be the last season of Doctor Who as we know it, because it hasn't really been a breakthrough in spite of being on Disney Plus here in North America, and they're kind of struggling with what to do next, because they've kind of tried a lot of different things to bring some eyes to it, famously bringing in Jodie to be first female Doctor. That's huge. They have Ncuti playing the first Black Doctor and obviously the first queer Doctor. So that's kind of cool. And yet it still hasn't quite clicked. And part of the deal that BBC made to put it on Disney Plus was about money. The the idea was that they'd have a little bit more money to spend so that it could improve, some of the visuals and some of the, a little bit more budget and stuff like that. I guess, it's funny because I was just talking about how I like the sort of neo-futuristic feel of the Fantastic Four, but here they kind of went for it had a very Tintin kind of, Tintin for our American listeners, vibe to it. Hergé, parlez-vous français? And yet it kind of, Doctor Who still sometimes just seems cheap and kind of, I don't know. They brought in this new companion and she has robots break into her apartment and kidnap her and tell her she's the queen of the universe and throw her in a rocket ship and take her into outer space. And they tell her she has to get married and she just kind of rolls with it in a way that is not normal. And then the Doctor shows up and he's bombastic as ever. And again, I love his vibe and I love his energy, but it just felt like this whole episode seemed very improbable. Like, she does stop him a couple of times and say, I'm not in. I don't want this. I don't want this. And maybe that's the vibe that they're setting up for the two of them for the season. But I just found if you lived in a world where, aliens knocked down your door and sort of said, you're coming with us, you wouldn't just be like, oh, all right, I guess I got to do this. You'd be like, what the heck?
What are you talking about? Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing you kind of have to, you have to go into Doctor Who with a suspension of disbelief that it is kind of tongue in cheek and it is kind of this, I don't want to say farcical. It's not farcical, but it's improbable and whimsical in a way that is perhaps suspension of disbelief is required. But I just found I was watching this episode and I just was having a real tough time connecting with the new companion. And it's not for a lack of talent. I think she's a really good performer and I think she's lovely. But it just all felt a little thin.
Mm-hmm.
And it did make me think hard about why do I love Doctor Who? What is the parts of Doctor Who that I love? Why have I connected with it in the past? And I think it really does come down to particular chemistry between the cast members, really certainly good storylines, overarching and individual. There are many moments over the years of watching Doctor Who where I've cringed and been like, oh, it's not those stupid boxes with the plungers on them again. But
or the sunglasses instead of the sonic screwdriver.
Yeah, or
hey,
let's just get a bunch of statues and pretend that they're scaring people. They've always kind of done things on the cheap, and sometimes it leads to really creative storytelling. I wonder if it's actually a detriment to have money, because it just felt like this whole thing had big spectacle projection, robots and space and planet, and it looked probably as good as Doctor Who's ever looked, but I just did not feel connected to it, and I'm struggling with why, and I'm sad. Because I love Doctor Who and I love a lot of things about Doctor Who, but I just wasn't feeling it for this one. And yeah, I'm a little bit worried more than anything after watching this.
Yeah, well, I get for me, the tie-in to the how did she become the Empress of the Universe or whatever, tie-in to the boyfriend who wants to give her everything at the very beginning, the character at the very beginning, and then he turns out to have gone through, it's a time travel thing. He's gone into the future and changed time and, and through the robot technology, and because he's the bad guy at the end, right? That gets undone or whatever. And Doctor, the funny thing about Doctor Who is it's kind of, what I like about Doctor Who, first of all, is it's different kind of storytelling than your typical Marvel, DC kind of, Star Wars, Star Trek lore, right? So it approaches these stories from a different point of view, but there's always this sort of the thing about the Doctor. The Doctor always seems to know more than everybody else, but it's different though, because the Tom Baker Doctor and the Petrie Doctors were knowledgeable in other ways. They had the knowledge of all the universes or whatever together, and that's how they kind of did things. And they wouldn't do a lot of exposition. They would just sort of say, a matter of factly, this is the way it is, right? And then that sort of, I think that's unusual writing for characters. And It always takes a while to get, each person who becomes a doctor brings a different energy to it. Like Peter Capaldi had a different energy than Matt Smith or David Tennant, and I find that Ncuti and Jodie have different energies as well, right?
Yep.
Even though they're still playing that same, it's kind of like Dax, right? In Star Trek, or you've got Jadzia Dax, and you've got the other Dax person, and then you've got the Dax that Cisco knew when he was younger. It's the same symbiont, if you will, but different, different packaging and different attitudes, right? So
yeah,
but the same attitude, the same matter of fact, I know what's going on, sort of thing. Or I'm trying to figure out what's going on, which is I think the new generation of Doctor Who is I'm trying to figure out what's going on, and then they're drawing on all that knowledge that they've got, right? And then they kind of, oh yeah, I've seen that before, and blah blah blah, right? Like I find if you watch the Doctor Who the older Doctor Who's, it was always they knew what was going on, or they knew all this they had all this institutional memory that they would bring to bear when solving problems, whereas Matt Smith and David Tennant and Jodie and Ncuti are kind of going, that's odd, let's look into that, right? Or let's go with that, or whatever, right? And that's a different energy, I think, in this kind of show, right? So, but I don't know, I guess maybe the adolescent me is always like Doctor Who and willing to give them a little bit of a leeway. But the thing about it is, that's one thing I was surprised by is the production value in this particular show, this particular episode, right? Because like you said, I think they have two full-size robots, and because I saw the clip I shared with you guys, the behind-the-scenes actors were the same ones who've done some of the monsters in the first series, right?
Yep.
First Disney series. But yeah, and it's interesting, and yeah, it's always difficult when they bring I always find getting used to a companion harder than getting used to a doctor.
Yeah.
Right. Like I liked Amy Pond right from the get-go. But that first episode with her was kind of weird, right? And this one here, it's obviously like in the trailer they make it look like they're having fun with it, because obviously in the next one they go into England, but he's trying to bring her home, which is always another thing in Doctor Who. But he brings her to the wrong decade, right? And then they have to run around and dress up like 60s Londoners, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and again, they're bringing the Disney money, like you said, with the costumes and stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, again, you're right. It's probably as good as it's ever looked. It's just a question of is it as good as it's ever been? And I don't think that is the case.
But the showrunner is Russell T. Davies now, right? So,
it is. And again, this is somebody who's responsible for some of the best Who we've ever seen. So yeah, it's something. Mm-hmm. I mean, does this inspire or dissuade you as our sort of new Whovian?
Well, he hasn't seen it yet, though.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying.
Yeah. The difficult thing for me to say here is I think I'm going to skip this season. For folks who are kind of wondering, maybe it's blasphemous. Like, I did not grow up with Doctor Who, so I don't really have the nostalgia factor that you all are talking about here. And I think very similar to, there are things in my life I'm like, oh, it kind of only makes sense if you're from the part of the country that I grew up in, and like that's a thing that we're all into, and other people from the outside are looking at you weird, and then those people have their own insider thing. That's kind of how I view this. Like, some people like cilantro, some people don't. Some people literally can't, because they lack the right enzyme. It tastes like soap. And for me, I look at it as like, I don't judge Doctor Who fans. I hope they don't judge me for like not being jazzed about this. It's not to say that it's like, like a problem to watch. It's just more like, it's just not really clicking with me. And so there's a whole bunch of media to watch in this, maybe we might hover in the queue somewhere, but it's not like must watch for me.
Yeah. And well, it's interesting that there's a good point too, because for me, like in the UK, Doctor Who is huge, right? Like,
it's an institution.
Yeah, and then 60 years, right? But,
60 years minus 16. It was off the air for a good long stretch there.
That's true. It's true. But and like I said, and the new Doctor Who, like I said, came back with a different sort of attitude towards the Doctor and solving problems and stuff, right? But I'm you. I didn't watch Doctor Who in the 80s, right? So there are people who love those Doctors, right? Yeah, there's two or three Doctors I never watched, right? But and then I didn't watch them right from the very get go either because I was too young. But the thing about it is, like, I think it's very few Canadians who watch this show, and I'm sure it's a very small proportion of Americans that watch it as well. So bringing it to Disney, kind of like you said, it's like trying to bring hockey to the United States, right? Like it needed a Wayne Gretzky or something like that to really make it, to bring the people to the market, right? Or bring the. And I think that's the thing that Doctor Who's missing. And I don't know that Disney is going to save Doctor Who if that's the argument today, right?
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I mean, you'd almost need a British A-list star to be the Doctor, I think, to pick up that kind of casual audience that isn't afraid of what Jaime is talking about, which is there's a lot of there. Like, even I am intimidated at times by the long tail of Doctor Who, and I've watched the last 15 years of it. But there's 60 years of heritage. There's so much continuity to it. There's all these, quite like when they bring back the Maestro or that character
or Division and all that stuff,
these things have huge long tails on them that go back into the 1960s. Like, it's a lot, and I get it. It can be a little impenetrable. It's the same reason. It's the same argument. I know this frustrates the heck out of a lot of comic fans. It's the reason why, some people are like, I don't want to read Action Comics number 1057 because I'm not going to pick it up off the newsstands because there's 1056 issues that came before. What the heck am I going to do with that? Whereas if you start it from number one again every 3 or 4 years, which is what most comic companies do, and New Amazing Spider-Man number 1 just came out last week. I think this is the 7th volume, maybe 6th or 7th volume of Amazing Spider-Man, where they've started it over again, because it's just easier to say to people, hey, this is a new starting point. You can start here. And I think that's the reason why they went with that new numbering system on Doctor Who for Disney Plus, where it's like, hey, season 1. I think they were like, hey, you don't have to remember all that other stuff. But then they shot themselves in the foot because they were like, but also here's the old Doctor that was a different Doctor, but now he's white, then you should care about this. But also there's this huge long storyline and he was in love with this girl. It's just like, oh my God, here we go again. So I don't know. I'll be really, really curious to see if this season has enough juice to keep the lights on, because I feel like it's just not clicking, and it's a shame because I love Judy Gatwa in Sex Education. He's an incredible performer. It just something's not clicking.
Yeah, Mrs. Flood was in this one too, right?
Is that who that was? The neighbor
or Susan Twist? Yeah, it's either one of the two.
Yeah,
Susan Twist is the one that kept showing up in all the other episodes last year and they didn't have a name.
Yep.
Maybe Mrs. Flood. Yeah, there's a scene where there's an old lady at the very beginning, right? That's the same character for the tie-in between the church on Ruby Road or whatever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, hopefully,
we'll see.
Better things ahead.
Let's see, but like you said, there's a lot of it's like me. Like, I'm not going to start watching. Like, I've stopped watching South Park years ago, so there's no point in my picking up a South Park other than it's familiar characters, right? And the same thing with Simpsons. I could turn on the Simpsons, but I'll watch an episode. I won't get the in jokes, right? Because I've not been playing along the whole time.
Yeah, although some of those, I caught up with South Park last year because I was probably at least 2 seasons behind. And if you start at the beginning of the season, they do kind of clear the decks. There certainly are legacy, jokes and characters and stuff, but not enough to really dissuade you.
Are they still killing Kenny?
They did it, then they stopped doing it, then they killed him permanently, then they brought him back. So yeah, it's your mileage may vary, but yeah, no, it's fair. Some of these shows, they just. They don't know when is enough, and sometimes they try and go like, oh yeah, we're going to start from scratch again. We're going to do a Kelvin universe. And like, yeah, is that better? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm 2 episodes in on The Handmaid's Tale, the season 6, and it looks like something that was filmed during COVID because there's 2 people in each scene, right? Or 3 people at max, right? But I'm just not, I thought it was over. Like, you know what I mean? I didn't realize it's back, and it's like 4 episodes I'm catching up, and new ones are coming out. But it's kind of like they're almost like flogging a dead horse, right, at this point.
Yeah. Well, especially considering the entire book covered the first season.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
But I mean, it and in retrospect, it does seem to fit with the times in the same way that Wilson Fisk does as well, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we'll move on to the watch list then.
Yeah.
So you're up first.
A bunch of different places wrote this same story this week. I happen to have the one from the Trek Core blog here. It is about this new event.
Theme park?
Well, it's kind of a weird thing. It's an experience. So they're doing this thing at Universal Fan Fest in California, where they are doing these immersive experiences around certain movies and activities that they've done. Harry Potter, they've done Back to the Future, One Piece. These are all things that they're doing as part of this. They're doing a Star Trek one, and it's called Star Trek Red Alert. And the idea is that you are going into this interactive activity in small groups, and it's supposed to be like you are flying on a shuttlecraft to the Enterprise D. It's set during the timeline of Picard, and you're sort of on this little adventure that's sort of an interactive, immersive Star Trek experience for 15 minutes or so. And a bunch of different Star Trek related media, for lack of a better term. I don't really like calling these people that, but sure, have all gotten a preview this week. So you just put it in a search, and like a bunch of these I got a first person, my blog got a first person in-person thing of this week. Somehow they didn't call Jaime, even though he could have just flown right down. I don't understand. But it sounds pretty neat, actually. You go in, there's basically, you move in small groups. There's 4 different parts of the experience. So like at one point you're on a shuttlecraft, one point you're in like a certain part of the Enterprise. You go down to the engineering department, you go into the sick bay, and, it's kind of neat. It's supposed to be, like one of those, they used to have these kinds of, rides. There was the one in Las Vegas that was like Star Trek, The Experience and stuff like that. And, it's basically you're inside of a set. You're inside of a Star Trek set, and you get to sort of wander around, and you go on this little interactive experience. And, if you happen to be American, or living in California, it sounds pretty cool. It's starts next weekend, starts April 25th, and then it goes on for about a month. And it's at the Universal Studios Hollywood. So I'll have the link into in the show notes here if you want to read more about this. Or again, there was a bunch of these stories this week where everyone was like, I got an exclusive preview. Like, no, you didn't. And it sounds cool. So I must admit, I'm not going to California, but if anybody actually does do this, I'd love to hear more about it, because it does sound neat.
So you were saying, but I think in the article it said it's not just Star Trek, it's also Back to the Future and Harry Potter or something like that?
Harry Potter and One Piece, yeah. They're doing different,
One Piece. Okay.
Different ones as part of this sort of, it's almost like a pop-up interactive
like currently
experience.
It's Star Trek, but eventually it'll be the other ones, you mean? Or
I don't know how they're doing that. I'll have to read more details. But yeah, I think it's basically different stretches. There's different ones. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different weekends, and I think there are different activities on different weekends depending on what it is. But yeah,
actually, I have a Star Trek question for you guys.
Okay.
And it's about the movies, right? So. And it's in tune with what we were talking about last week with, Star Wars or Star Wars A New Hope, as we've come to know it. Wasn't the movie called Star Trek Generations?
Star Trek 7?
Yeah, because now on the tin it says Star Trek Generations 7 or Star Trek 7, like it's got a 7 on it.
No, it was just Star Trek Generations when we first saw it. You and I saw it twice on the opening night, so I guess we should know.
Yeah, so, and I'm sure I had the VHS and
yeah.
eventually DVDs. I own it on iTunes, but I just noticed on the iTunes label it says Star Trek Generation or Star Trek 7 Generations or something like that. Yeah, it's like, retro renaming or whatever. But anyway.
Weird.
Anyway, so what else you got for us?
Just a quick flag. We talked about it earlier, so it's a little redundant, but Andor Season 2 starts on Tuesday, April 22nd. They are doing this weird drop where they're dropping 3 episodes per week for 4 weeks, so it will be over with probably a little quicker than, I don't know, say 3 podcasters would like to have content to talk about for 12 weeks, but it will be interesting. It essentially, you're getting, a movie. You're getting an Andor movie a week for 4 weeks, which is not a bad thing. I thought the way that they did those little sort of mini arcs in the first season was really interesting. We get a sort of 4-episode arc, 4-episode arc, 4-episode arc that I thought was really cool. So here we're just sort of getting it a little bit tightened up. I loved it. Honestly, it's still one of the best shows of the 2020s. It just is. It's just incredible television. And apparently they just absolutely rolled out the dough for Tony Gilroy in season 2. Apparently it cost as much to make in total as any Star Wars movie did. So, like, high production value, A-list cast. Apparently there's going to be all kinds of little teasers and cameos and build-ups towards Rogue One. And this was my most anticipated show. I just cannot wait to see where they go from here, because I thought season 1 was exceptional filmmaking and television making, and just am dying to see what they're going to do next.
Okay. I think you're up to Jaime.
Yeah, I've got side quest. So this is kind of like it would be in video games, where you have your main story arc of, go defeat the dragon, save the princess, or whatever the case may be. You usually have side quests like, oh, we got to go connect, the dots over here in this map, or maybe you have to collect 999 Smurf berries or something, right? There's usually some sort of something that is a quest, to the side of the main quest. So Mythic Quest being the main series that we just talked about, that's come to an end on Apple TV Plus. Before the ending came out, they released 4-episode side quest. So this is other people who are, affected and impacted and kind of in the sort of outer solar system of the Mythic Quest crew. So it doesn't explicitly star the main folks. But it's kind of interesting to see how the same sort of patterns of how sometimes companies and nerd cultures can kind of break people sort of unexpectedly. That was one of the things I enjoyed about the Mythic Quest series, and it's something I also enjoyed with the side quest. It's pretty easy breezy. They're like 15-20 minute episodes, 4 of them, so you can hammer it out in about an hour or so.
All right, for me, I've been watching a bunch of things, but as I mentioned before, I'm watching the Handmaid's Tale, which is supposed to be fiction, but I don't know, it's less fiction-y these days. I've started watching Black Mirror. Season 7, I believe, is currently on the Netflix, and of course it dumped it all at once. I've only watched the first 2 episodes. The really interesting one with Rashida Jones and I've forgotten his name now, from the IT Crowd and Bridesmaid. Anyway, she has a brain tumor, and they've got this new technology where they replace the brain tumor with a backup, and so they can serve her the part of her brain that's missing via like a cell phone plan, for $300 a week, $300 a month, and then of course then they decide they come up with a new version, so it's like Brain Thing whatever plus. So she has to kick up her subscription, and then eventually they have, brain scan plus 12 or whatever, and so it's like if she doesn't opt into it, in the middle of the day she starts running ads on her, like just saying, Folgers coffee tastes great in the morning, kind of thing, like in the middle of a conversation, right? So yeah, it's all about how it's a parallel to, like, whatever plan you have today and you think you're satisfied with, in 6 months, they'll come up with some prime version that you need to get and pay more money for, right? And if you don't, they'll throw ads into it. So very, very similar to our current situation with streaming TV and stuff. And the second episode was fun. Was about an old high school rivalry where somebody's like she's the star employee at this one company, and then one of her classmates comes in as an intern or like a junior and starts messing with her life. So yeah, I'll leave that one there, but really sort of interesting, be careful who you befriend on Facebook, right? or who you stepped on in high school, because they may come back to haunt you, right? So that's pretty much what I've got for sci-fi on my watch list these days, plus all the 3 hours of Andor to watch next week, and right.
It does keep adding up.
Yeah, and I tried to catch up with Hacks as well too. So
yeah, that's been fun so far. The first two episodes of the season last week were funny.
Yeah, so and I'm just looking at the first 1 to 10 collection of Star Trek movies on iTunes. They're now labeling them. All of them are, except for the first one, are all labeled Star Trek 2, Star Trek 3, Star Trek 4, Star Trek 5, and then 7 for Generations, 8 is First Contact, 9 is Insurrection, and 10 is Nemesis. So,
thank you,
marketing.
Thank you, George Lucas. I mean, wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know. It just threw me a curve at me when I went Generations, Star Trek 7 Generations yesterday when I was looking at it. Not what I remember. But that said, that's it for this week. So, Jonathan, if people want to get in touch with you, where would they find you?
You can find me on the Blue Sky or Instagram as @JPK News, or you can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/@JPK.
All right. And Jaime, if people want to get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram as @DevTheHair.
All right. My name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA1. I am on Blue Sky, Mastodon, Substack, many, many places as that handle. So until next time, we'll see you in the future, unless we're in the past. Bye.
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 You've been listening to the Spockcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spockcast website at spockcast.com. If you have feedback or questions, you can get in touch with us on the website. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/Spockcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spockcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
Here we go. It's over. Yeah. It's over. I like Black Mirror. It's a really good show.
Yeah, I've been meaning to sit down. I've seen a few episodes getting flagged as really good ones, and I heard that U.S. Callister one that's in there, the sequel to that great episode, is the season 2, right?
Yeah, it's coming up.
So, yeah,
later on.
Looking forward to catching up with that at some point.
Yeah, it's just like, who's got the time?
Yeah. I saw one of the people from affiliated with the show, because this showrunner said that future seasons could hold more sequels to classic episodes. And I was like, interesting.
Yeah, there's been some big name stars have done that show. I think Miley Cyrus did it a couple of years ago, and last year maybe, and Christian Milioti, and that guy from that.
Oh, Jesse Plemons was in that one.
Yeah,
right?
Jesse Plemons. Yeah.
Yep.
As the loser boss.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's good to have these shows that are little star makers, right? You get them in these ones and, see what they can do. It's kind of nice that way, right? It gives a chance to feature, like, you get a full hour and some really meaty material, and maybe that gives you the next big job.
Yeah. What else is going on? How about those? Did the Kraken make it to the playoffs?
They did not.
No, this is one of those things. My significant other and I were talking about it. The Seattle Sounders, the MLS Major League Soccer team, had to have been the best possible, just confluence of things for them to gain a lot of fandom here in Seattle. One was, of course, they were good right out of the gate. That's always helpful to drum up interest. But two, they also benefited a lot from the rebound, pun fully intended, of you had the breakup with the Sonics basketball team leaving, and you kind of needed something to love. And, oh, look, here's something to love. And, oh, wow, they're good. It sort of helped. Whereas the Kraken have, for my mind, I don't want to diss folks who are NHL fans. Like, I don't really hear people casually talking about the Kraken much. So their season kind of just came to an end.
Yeah, but then if you look at the pieces, they do seem like, they're building towards something. So hopefully the city embraces them as they start to improve. I mean, they can't not all teams can be the frickin' Vegas Golden Knights and their miraculous, win a cup within the first couple of years.
Yeah.
As a Leaf fan, also, come on, man. But it's completely understandable. Obviously, it's a tough ask for all these communities to be like, hey, we got this awesome team for you. Isn't it great? You got this new thing. And they're like, yeah, it's a great new thing. And they're like, yeah, by the way, it's going to take like 5 years to build a real contender. You're like, yeah, all right. Well, so call me in 5 years.
I'm just seeing here that they've announced Dogma: The Resurrection Tour.
Yeah, they're doing the you can go see it with Kevin, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say this is the most hopeful I've felt as a Leaf fan in a while. They don't seem like all sizzle no steak like they have the past few years. So who knows? And it's the Battle of Ontario in round 1 starting this weekend, so that ought to be interesting.
You and I went to an Ottawa-Toronto game, right?
We sure did, and it was a banger, as I recall.
Loud.
It was loud. We went on a Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada, and it was a really loud building. That was way back when the Leafs were good. And by good, I mean actually winning many playoff series. It is, hope springs eternal in the hearts, minds, and bodies of Maple Leafs fans this time of year, at least for a couple of weeks. And then we say, oh, screw it, it's baseball season.
Baseball, you bet.
Yeah.
Once again, the Seattle Mariners are like, you know what? We don't think that 9 innings is enough. We recognize these tough economic conditions mean that you need more baseball for your money. No game this season shall end before the 9th inning is over. It shall only end in at least 10 innings.
Yeah.
It's like 11% more for your money.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say you're not getting your money's worth.
Yeah, I mean, been on the right side, on the wrong side of a bunch of like, oh, it's going to the 10th inning. Oh, dang it, we lost. Oh, it's going to the 10th inning. We kicked their ass. What's going on? You can peanut butter some of those runs in some of the other games and win them.
Yeah. I don't know. It feels like football has just moved ahead of baseball so hard in America now. Like baseball season just doesn't seem to have the same juice it used to.
Boy, I was listening to... I still subscribe to the Acquired.fm podcast. They started out as mostly being about tech companies and grading, the IPO or the acquisition, the merger, whatever. And they've kind of moved on to be more like analysis and history and real depth research. They're like 2, 3, 4 hour long episodes on a company like Louis Vuitton or the reason I'm bringing this up is the Indian Premier League in cricket.
Oh, yeah.
Feels like, and they quite rightfully call it's like, what if you took the NFL's model and said, let's not do it from like the 60s, let's do it here in the 2000s, and how do you make something that is just must-see television, hugely popular, huge women fan base, actively attracting the women market as an untapped 50% or plus of your market. And they do it right. It's like, hey, for this, is it like 10 weeks or something? You're going to have banger after banger game and storyline because you hardly have any games to begin with. Everything is meaningful, like the NFL, but not stretched out. Not, you got to have, the NFL Sunday ticket to watch all 16 games going at the same time. It's like, no, bro, one game tonight, everybody watch it. Even if you're not a fan of those particular teams, you're going to watch it because that's what you're going to talk about at the water cooler.
Yeah.
So I think baseball needs something kind of like that.
I will say, for a lot of North American sports, I really think that the economics are tough, And it's hard to understand why owners would want to do it, because they're all about getting butts in seats and commission all the different, the seat prices, all the stuff at the concession stands. Like, that's what they're after. But I love the simplicity of like soccer schedule, where it's like, we play one game at your building, you play one game at our building, we play 1-on-1 versus everybody in the league, and that's it. That is the thing. And then there's also like an ongoing season-long tournament that is, single elimination. That's so much cooler. Like, if you knew that like the 2 times the season that you were going to play, as a Mariners fan, you were going to play, who's a Mariners rival? The Angels. If you were like, we only play, one series there and one series here, and that's it for the whole season, so that every one of these games really matters, it would just feel like there's so much more juice to it. Like, when you see Manchester versus Manchester in an English Premier League game, it really matters, because that could be the difference between winning a title and not winning a title. And all the North American sports are all so bloated, with maybe the exception of the NFL, who is kind of doing it better than most.
Yeah,
like 162 games. It's 2025. Who has that attention span?
It's a very different era. You didn't have all of the different ways in which to amuse yourself in, like, the Jackie Robinson era, so you could follow along on the radio. Everybody's listening to the same sort of things. You didn't really have much. What are you going to do? Just stare in the dark corner until you wake up the next day? Like, no, you're gonna talk about baseball. You're gonna listen to baseball. You're gonna maybe go to the game. Like, it was the only sort of thing going on. Whereas now it's like, look, dude, this is the TikTok generation. Ain't nobody got time for that. Basketball, guess what? We're just going to ignore the vast majority of the game. We're only playing the fourth quarter. It's a one-quarter game now, so we can get to the last 2 minutes that actually matters as soon as possible.
Yeah, well, the same argument goes for, I've heard countless people say, it's the most exciting thing in hockey is when they, like, cut down into overtime and they have to play 3-on-3. There's like so much ice and it's really wide open. I'm like, cool. Why don't they just switch the entire league to 3-on-3? And they're like, the people would lose their jobs, and that's unsustainable, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, but you just said it's the most exciting part. So make up your mind.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Same thing with basketball. It's like, hey, oh my God, these guys are incredible. They can do these things and blah, blah. It's like, yeah, cool. But, it's true in all sports. You make the field bigger, you make the rink bigger, you make more space, and, it changes the impact. I don't know. There's lots of ways to fix these sports. It's just, again, what it comes down to is these are businesses. Businesses are about making money, and you're not going to give up gate when there's money to be made.
Yeah. The whole sort of thing that I listened to, this podcast about the Indian Premier League, has me interested in, like, I'm going to see if I can somehow watch this when it comes out, because, like, I can get into that, storylines, WWF style storylines, plus something that is vaguely like baseball that I can kind of vaguely understand. I'm like, I definitely come as an outsider where I am vaguely familiar because of, ex-colleagues who used to work at Infosys, the Indian subcontractor. I am aware that Sachin is like the Michael Jordan of cricket. I don't know his
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I was like, I don't know his full name. Just like, I'm sure there's many people who are like Jordan who don't even know the guy's name is Michael because they didn't grow up in that era. It's just
I used to be a sports journalist. Is the only reason I know that.
There
it's
you go.
Not common knowledge.
It's like, they got the cricket bats with his name on it and stuff. Just like you get all the gear, the Jordan gear. I'm like, yeah. See, like, there you go. That's what I come in with, enthusiasm to learn about what's going on here, because it sounds like the future of sports, right?
Yeah.
Like they learned when they started the Indian Premier League, they learned from what was working and not working with the other sports. I mean, when I learned, way back in the day, almost 15, 20 years ago, I'm like, what? It's like 5 days for a game.
Yeah.
You can be totally blown out in the first day, and like, nope, you still got to play in another 4 more days of shame.
Yeah. Well,
the short match is 8 hours. I'm like, short one is 8 hours, dude. Baseball is long enough as it is, and you got to make something even longer than that.
But that's a good example of exactly what you're talking about, Jaime. Like, cricket is a sport that is not afraid to change things for the better they still continue to have these like epic 5-day matches, but they also have these limited overs games and stuff like that where like there's only 100 overs, 200 overs, whatever it is, and those games are much faster, and it is a different type of game. And your mileage may vary as if you're a traditionalist, you're like, oh, that's not my cricket, whatever. But those games are faster and more interesting, and they do that. Rugby did the same thing. Rugby has gone, there's still traditional rugby, but then there's rugby sevens, where there's only 7 players on the field, and you're playing a much faster, shorter game. Those are really smart, interesting ways to modify a sport to make it a little more accessible. Like, why couldn't you have like an NHL 3-on-3 tournament during the regular season where like, exactly like I said, play, one game each against each team in the East and the East plays the East, the West plays the West, you play a 1-game knockout or whatever. And then, you've got this like exciting thing that's happening and you're trying out some stuff. Like, why not? Right? Like, you got to try and find ways to get butts and seats. You got to try and find ways to get people to tune in on the TV. Like, again, football's the only one that seems to have figured it out. You got to give the people what they want, and what they don't want is 162 baseball games or 82 basketball games or 82 hockey games. That's just too much content. As Tim was just saying, there's too much of everything. Like,
I think it was Jaime who said it, actually. Well, listen, speaking of too much, I got to go let the dogs out, so we should probably wrap up.
Alrighty.
You two have fun next week.
Talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good weekend.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.
Bye.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
These days, I can do anything from my phone. Book a vacation, order a meal from a 5-star restaurant, buy and trade stocks. But maybe the most amazing thing I can do is make my dirty laundry disappear and then reappear perfectly washed and folded. I have Rinse to thank for that. I just schedule a pickup in the Rinse app or at rinse.com. A Rinse valet comes to get my clothes, and before I know it, they're back, crisply folded and ready to wear. They even do dry cleaning, which is returned hanging in a nice Rinse garment bag. And with Rinse, my satisfaction is guaranteed. If for any reason I'm not happy, they'll re-clean my clothes for free. Best of all, Rinse saves me tons of time each week. That's time I get to do something I love versus something I have to do. So if you want to save loads of time by not doing loads of laundry, remember, there's an app for that, Rinse. Sign up now and get $20 off your first order at rinse.com. That's RINSE.com.